Hey everybody, this is Wes with Lynnvander Games, bringing you another tabletop simulator preview of an upcoming board game that's coming to GameFound. This is called Minotaur. This is by Lynnvander Studios, and it's going to be coming out as a backable, supportable game. Looks like a video game, but it is a tabletop board game. So let's talk a bit about it. Maybe before I go into that, Lynnvander Studios has been part of the design history, I guess you could say, for games such as Evil Dead 2 and here, let me just check real quick about Lynnvander Studios: Evil Dead 2, Terminator Genesis, Army of Darkness. So they've been part of many games in the past, but now they're doing their first self-published game, and this is it, Minotaur. And in it, it's a cooperative game where you play 1 to 4 players working through this ever-growing labyrinth, trying to find and thwart this Minotaur by sealing the dungeon or the labyrinth that you're in. So that's a quick synopsis of the game. But I'll share with you 5 things I like just after having played the tabletop simulator version a couple of times. So the first off is this kind of 8-bit retro look. So if you look at some of these cards, it's not like it's hand-drawn art in the classic fantasy style you see in a lot of things now with digital painting. This is kind of that 8-bit, makes you feel like you're in a video game kind of mentality. And I grew up with the original Nintendo, so seeing characters like this, kind of, Simon Belmont and Samus from Metroid and those kind of things, I'm familiar with that look, so it has a bit of nostalgia to it. And if it's done in certain type of games, it doesn't make sense. But in this game, it actually does feel like you're playing a little 8-bit video game as you stroll through this labyrinth and try to slay the Minotaur. So I like that 8-bit look to it. All right, second thing is it's very fast to set up. So it's 1 to 4 players co-op, and all you have to do to set up is set up 9 cards in the center of the table. Don't worry about the border, that's just for looks. You pick a hero for each player, you set the Minotaur up, and you slide these decks and token bags. So to set up this game probably would only take about 5 minutes, and so for a little kind of a dungeon explorer kind of game, that's a low amount of time, and you can really just dive right into the game pretty quick there. So I like that. Third thing I like is that it has an endless quality to the labyrinth itself. So when you're in this labyrinth, you're going to spend actions moving around, and if you ever get to a point where you want to move to the next level of the dungeon, what you do, or labyrinth, I keep saying dungeon, is you take 3 cards and put them adjacent to the labyrinth, just like this. You flip them over, and you try to orient them in such a way that you can maximize your ability to get through the dungeon. So I might put I can only really get through like that. So there's always at least one way you can do it, and if it doesn't work out, you would draw 3 new cards. So then I would take these 3 cards on the right side of the dungeon or the labyrinth, and I'd set them over there, and this would become my new labyrinth. So it's almost like we navigated to the west, and the stuff on the east doesn't matter anymore. And if I wanted to go back to the east, so let's say this character decides, you know what, I'm going to travel over here, well, then you can only do that if there's nobody over in this side. But if we were at that point, I would do the same thing. I would draw 3 cards, and I would get rid of these 3 cards, and we would scroll back the other way. So you can scroll back and forth and up and down in this kind of never-ending labyrinth. And it's kind of like magical shifting labyrinth. And that's why pieces of the parts behind you disappear when you progress forward. So I think that's a neat mechanic. Reminds me of video games where you kind of get to the end of a screen and you move to the next screen and everything behind you just kind of disappears. So that's a pretty cool mechanic they have built in. The fourth thing I like is they have a very simple but effective mechanic for combat. So let's say that we are going to battle, we won't use a harpy, we'll pull out there's different random things that you fight here. Let's say that I was going to fight this skeleton, and I am this foot warrior guy here. So what happens is I would draw a card to see how strong that skeleton is. And so you can see here this card has numbers for all different kinds of things. So in this case, the skeleton would have a strength of 5. But if I were up against the Minotaur, it would have a strength of 8. And I would compare that to my score of whatever I'm going to roll. So you can see here, if I want to I can do a different attack actions. I can do a berserk or a crush action. So if I were to do the crush action, I would roll 2 dice and add 1 against a single enemy. So I'd take these 2 dice, roll. So I had 6 plus 1 is 7. 7 beats 5, so I would defeat the skeleton, and it would be removed from the map. And it's just that easy. You're just comparing dice rolls. Different characters have different strengths or different abilities. Like the cleric has a special power to actually hurt multiple undead at once. So instead of just hitting one guy, it can hit multiple guys. Or the warrior has a berserk where you could hit 3 guys instead of 1 guy, anybody in range. So they've got some little versatile things, but then you could also heal a fellow character, or you might disarm a pit. Lots of different things in both in combat and exploration that I think are neat in the game. And then the 5th thing I like is that this is a cooperative game, and you really do have to rely on each other. So in the game you might acquire items, but what you really need to acquire is these seals. And so each seal has a red half and a blue half. So if I were to search through this bag, eventually at some point in going through the labyrinth, I would find this other half. And a character has to have both halves in order to seal a part of the dungeon, a part of the labyrinth. But at any given time, a character can only hold 1 piece of equipment. So unless you're putting together a seal. So if you want to have enough strength and power to get through this labyrinth, it helps to have a companion who maybe has another piece of equipment that helps them finish off the Minotaur, or finish off or fight off other things. So you kind of have to think together, plan together, same as when you're walking through the dungeon or the labyrinth. You have to decide if you both want to go this way, or north or south. So there's a little bit of talking and planning with your co-players, or you can play it solo. You can play 2 players with one playing as 2 characters like I've done. And kind of last thing, it's not in my top 5, but it's part of the game is that the Minotaur always comes back. So if I defeat the Minotaur, there's always a good chance that later on I'm going to draw a card, and the card will tell me if the Minotaur comes back or not. So the Minotaur is never actually killed. He's too powerful for that. And so your goal is to collect these seals together to stop the Minotaur, and kind of working cooperatively. If the Minotaur appears on the map, the 2 of you better figure out, or 4 of you, however many of you there are, figure out how to stop that Minotaur, because it will bash you to bits. Trust me, I've experienced that. But there you go. That is Minotaur. Survives a labyrinth and break the seal. I can't read what that says on this kind of blurry image here. But this is Minotaur, and I think it's worth checking out when it comes on GameFound in February. And if you have any questions, feel free, throw it in the comments. I can always put it forth to the publishers or designer as well. As always, thanks for watching, and have a great day.